think this is going to be one of those I told you so.
I grew my hair to be back length in the span of 3.5 years without relying on protective styles whatsoever. But before that, I've been chopped 3 different times and I tried to grow long hair for years. So if I could go back in time, here are some things that I would never ever do to my hair again so I could reach my length goals even faster. I know that I will get a lot of pushback when it comes to the first mistake because this is a myth that refuses to die. My very first mistake was believing in the idea of protein moisture balance. This is the idea that your hair needs an even balance of protein and moisture. Too much protein and your hair becomes stiff and brittle. Too much moisture and it goes stringy and mushy and becomes very, very weak. I have avoided so many amazing products for years because I was so terrified of getting protein or moisture overload.
Now, I have talked about this here on my channel so many times and we'll go over it soon, but the reason that so many Black women have been confused is not because the information has not been here. It is because everybody wanted to do the hacks, the do-it-yourselves, and regardless of what professional cosmetologists said, everyone chose to believe the YouTuber that made it up, because since the beginning of time, everything that this woman is going to say in this video, professional cosmetologists have been saying it. And I'll put a couple of clips in where I said things as well. So as we keep going, what I'll do, I won't necessarily even be talking and giving commentary. I'll just go to a video where I said it. I'll either add it as a clip or just put it on the screen. Lord.
I now know that there is no such thing as protein moisture balance. The fundamental problem with this misconception is that what people believe to be moisture in hair care is not actually moisture. What people refer to as moisture is actually conditioning. Products that are marketed as being very moisturizing are just conditioning products. So their purpose is not penetrating your hair and make it softer. They are there to leave film formers over your hair that will make it smoother and nicer even after the water evaporates. Also,
don't get mad at me, right? But I agree with her, but then I disagree because, again, everybody chose to believe what YouTubers said that moisture was instead of just simply researching the word moisture. If you look up the definition, the dictionary's definition of moisture, to moisturize something is to create a barrier. That has always been the definition of moisture. But for whatever reason, y'all watch a YouTuber and they're like, oh, put this moisturizer on your hair and it's going to penetrate your hair. So you guys believe them, even though professional cosmetologists have always been telling you that to moisturize is to seal. Lord.
So a lot of proteins in hair care products are also conditioning agents. But the problems with proteins is that a lot of them are not as good at sticking onto your hair as other popular conditioning agents are, like amodametical. And as a result, after using those products, your hair might feel more brittle than if you had used a more moisturizing product. But that's just a result of the protein not being as good at forming a film over your hair. This entire idea also ignores the fact that not all proteins have molecules that are small enough to be able to penetrate into your hair. And even with the ones that are small enough to be able to penetrate into your hair, there is actually not a consensus among scientists whether or not to do anything. I've seen some scientists say that they do believe it does something, and I've seen some cosmetic chemists say they don't believe they do anything. For example, Dr. Trevor Evans, PhD from chair at Princeton, equates using proteins on hair to throwing sawdust at a woodhouse to repair it.
If you really want to confuse someone who's singing the benefits of keratin in a formulation, ask them what type of keratin is in there. Returning to a house analogy, the building blocks of my house are wood, but it's made of different types of wood. If my house becomes derelict, it does me no good to stand outside and throw sawdust or 2x4s at it. Yet again, there appears to be a well-entrenched misconception that such an occurrence would arise in terms of products containing keratin and hair.
Essentially meaning it does nothing and it's just put in there for marketing. But I also know that there is some good evidence that certain hydrolyzed proteins are able to make your hair stronger, although that could be because they offer some lubrication to the hair as opposed to...
And again, I've made multiple videos on this. I've actually made a full video on keratin that I'll put here. But when we're talking about keratin, when we're talking about protein, these are only talking about the cuticle. Your hair shaft is broken down into 3 sections. You have the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla. When we're talking about protein treatments, we're only talking about the cuticle layer. When we're talking about moisturizers, we're only talking about the cuticle layer. layer. So I understand what she's trying to say, but she's still confused because a protein doesn't need to have molecules small enough to go into the hair shaft because they're not supposed to go into the hair shaft. The protein treatment only job is to fortify the cuticle layer of the hair shaft. Anywhere that there could be any holes or splits or rips or tears, it's supposed to be creating an artificial layer. The same thing is with silk amino treatments. It's just creating an artificial layer. So this whole entire conversation, moisture, hydration, all of that, the terms moisture and hydration have always been combined. They've never been the same thing.
Penetrating the hair and making it internally stronger. Either way, I missed out on a lot of great products because of that unfounded fear. If you are struggling with protein overload, maybe try a clarifying shampoo and a very, very conditioning product. It might get rid of the issue. I wanted to start this channel years before I actually did, but I always postponed it because unless it was perfectly done, I felt like it wasn't worth doing. There was always a reason why it wasn't the right time yet, and that all or nothing mentality held me back for much longer than it should have. Similarly, a lot of us fall into this pattern with our hair. We believe we'll start taking better care of it when we have the right products, the perfect routine, longer hair health, the right products, and so on and so forth.
Nothing to do with, getting encouragement for people. Learn your body.
Styles year-round. Before you come for me, please listen all the way through. I have always wanted to have long hair, and I thought the best way to achieve that was to never actually touch my hair. So I would wear protective styles back to back to back, because if I wasn't touching my hair, then I could not cause breakage, and if I wasn't causing breakage, I was retaining all the length, and if I was retaining all the length, eventually I would have very long hair. That was my logic, and that plan actually could have worked. I actually think that is the easiest way to get to very long hair over time. It just didn't work for me, and that's because my execution was really bad. The protective styles that I was doing were very detrimental to my hair, and they were being installed by people who had little care for my hair health.
Okay, so that I agree with that, but on top of that, the logic and has always been lost, and people confuse words. Just like in the first example she used, everybody was confusing the word moisture. Nobody understood what the word moisture meant. If you simply look up the definition, nobody would have got played. It's to create a barrier. It's not doing anything else. When we're talking about protective styles, Black women love to say braids make their hair grow. Braids do not make your hair grow. Braids help you retain length because you're not touching your hair. But for every inch you obtain, you lose or weaken a hair follicle. That's why you start off with braids at the beginning and then you end with thinning hair over time. And most people have the same exact thin spots over time. It has absolutely nothing to do with, braids being the best thing no, your hair growth happens within your guts. Braids and protective styles do not grow out your hair. They actually damage it long term.
If I was getting braids, they would be installed on the hair that got harshly blow-dried with no product, not even heat protection. Whoever was braiding my hair would be yanking, pulling, detangling with a fine tooth comb. It was horrible. But even when I wasn't getting my hair done by someone else who knew nothing about how to take care of.
And y'all, I keep stopping there, but I really, this part, it always, not with her, she's beautiful. It always irritates me because you're a grown woman. Unless you were a child, then everything that I'm saying goes to your mother. But if you're sitting here saying, raking through my hair with the small tooth comb, why didn't you say anything? This is something that I want us to leave in 2026. If we leave in rice water, apple cider vinegar, all of this stuff, I need everybody to leave being a punk. Like, everybody be so tough when they get in front of the computer, but when they're in the space where it actually matters, nobody says anything. So if it was painful, you should have said, ow, this hurts. When you go to a hair salon, and this is coming from somebody who was a cosmetologist for over a decade, when you sit in my chair, you do not give up your autonomy. You do not lose control over your body. I actually probably irritated my clients because I asked them if they were okay so many times. And if at any time you're uncomfortable with, at any time you're in pain, say something. If they don't stop, get your happy ass up and leave. Don't come on YouTube saying that, because at the end of the day, if you're constantly going to somebody that's hurting you, is it their fault or yours? Girl.
My hair type, I sometimes would commit great mistakes. For example, at the time, I did not know how bad constant tension on your scalp was for the overall health of your hair and the overall health of your scalp. If your goal is to grow long hair through protective styling, the goal of the protective style should always be first and foremost to preserve the health of your hair. A badly installed protective style can set you back years. It is not worth it. I personally have had to big chop 3 times, so I know this from personal experience. Overall, I'm not against protective styling, even though my videos might make it seem as if I am. I actually think it's the fastest way to achieve your hair goals, and I still do what I consider to be protective hairstyles with my own hair. It's just that people no longer call them that.
And then I also want you to look at her hair, right? And how beautiful her hair is. It has nothing to do with her hair being straight. And I think this is the reason that so many Black women get sidetracked, and why it's so hard for so many Black women to get the results that they want. Because if you don't have a curly fro, automatically your hair is unhealthy, automatically it's damaged. Where in reality, if we really want to go back to the olden days and we really want to look back at our ancestors and what they did when they had healthy hair, they always had stretched styles. Always. They were not walking around with afros. They were not, unless they wanted them to lock. And they were not walking around with 2-strand twists unless they were waiting for them to lock. That's how it was. But if they had their hair stretched out, it was for a reason, and you didn't have to worry about oils and greases and butters. Even when you look and you go back to the videos where they're in Africa, yeah, okay, they were putting a bunch of oil on their scalp, but can we really sit here and be honest and say that African women have the most longest, thickest, most beautiful hair? Like, can we really truthfully and honestly say that? Or do they have the same exact type of scalp inflammation that we're dealing with right now? But if you look at her hair, and like I said, that it doesn't have anything to do with it being bone straight. To me, even like her hair looks like a Black woman's hair. She doesn't look less like a Black woman because her hair is straight. Like, she still has all of the texture in her hair. Like, it still has body and volume. Like, you can't see through it. Her hair is still full, right? But most people be like, oh, well, she's not natural because her hair is straight. It's like, she's still a Black woman. She's a Black woman who can comb her hair a couple of times a day like you're supposed to. And it's just that on that. And I say that to people all the time. If blow dryers and flat irons and keeping your hair stretched, if that was a bad thing, why do the majority of women on the planet have long hair and stretched hair?
I love putting my hair into pigtails or a loose bun on the daily. Those are also protective styles. If I'm on holiday, I will be wearing mini twists or mini braids so that I can enjoy my vacation. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that protective styles do not simply mean using added hair. Another benefit of no longer doing protective hairstyles year-round that I don't think anyone ever talks about is the fact that you can actually assess your hair health day to day. Because I wash my hair every single week and because it stretches all the time, I am at all times aware of how healthy my hair is. And I can see whether I'm progressing or regressing. And in the event that I'm regressing, I know that there's something that needs to be tweaked in my hair care routine.
Listen, girl, you talking good to him. Exactly. And the problem is, when I was standing behind the chair, I would have women who haven't combed or brushed their hair in 17 days. They haven't brushed or combed their hair in 40 years. And then all of a sudden they come and they want me to straighten it out. And then they're in complete and total shock. They have no idea how their hair looks. Because your hair lies. When your hair is wet, if you have curly hair, when your hair is wet, it swells. If you have straight hair, when your hair is wet, it stretches. But yours swells. So the way that your hair looks when it's curly and the way that it looks when it's stretched out is two completely different things. And again, her hair is freaking gorgeous and she still has all of her texture. I don't understand how she could look more like a black woman. Girl.
We constantly rely on protective hairstyles. You don't necessarily do that. Oh, actually, let me just talk about me because this video is about me. I wasn't really doing that. Because I was rushing from one protective style to another, I never really had time to assess my hair health. At the time, I was also really afraid of heat, but I will talk about that later. But you can't assess your natural hair very well unless you at least blow dry it. At some point, I had breakage everywhere and I was completely unaware of it, and I assumed that my hair was very healthy because I had it covered all the time. While I believe that they have their place, I also think that it did more harm to my journey than good. My third mistake was, and I say this all the time, I am sorry if I'm becoming a broken record, my third mistake was not washing my hair enough.
Girl.
The fact that my hair has grown so much more over the last 3.5 years than the decades before can be attributed to my hair care routine, but I honestly think the biggest contributor has been the fact that I wash my hair a lot more often. This is tied up to the fact that I used to do protective hairstyles all the time before to not mess up the style, or because I was afraid of tangling my hair up if I was washing it under a protective style. I would go really long periods without washing my hair. I think I was averaging once a month, and sometimes I would go longer than that.
And this is the thing. The reason that black women are always being manipulated by hair product lines, they're always telling you, oh, this hair growth product, you put this oil on your scalp, you put this essential oil on your scalp and your hair will grow like weeds. They're playing with you. But because you don't understand the science of the human body, you don't understand how they playing in your face. Because when you go look at the ingredients, every hair care product, every hair growth product that you have right now in front of you, go look at the back of the bottle. And I guarantee you, it's full of essential oils that have antimicrobial and antibacterial properties. So what's actually happening is this product that you're putting on your scalp is killing the excess microbes on your scalp that have accumulated because you don't shampoo your hair, because you think that dirty hair grows, because you think that a dirty scalp grows, so you don't wash your hair, you don't shampoo your hair. And they're not going to stop you from doing that. You know why? Because if you start shampooing your hair is going to grow and you won't need a hair growth product, because your hair growth happens within your gut. And then once your hair growth grows, once the hair grows, then it protrudes out of the follicle and then it comes out of the pore and then you can see it. But guess what? If your scalp is full of pickle juice and if your scalp is full of boo-boo rice sprinkles, then you'll never actually see it. And then it'll look like your hair isn't growing. And then your hair will be falling out because of the inflammation, where in reality, the only thing you have to do is shampoo your hair on a regular basis.
I genuinely did not think that there was anything wrong with it, because curly hair is naturally drier than other hair types, because sebum does not travel further down those strands the way it does with other hair types. So while they need to wash...
And then, Lord, I know she mean well, and I know I just got done talking. This is a part, my sister, that you should put in. This makes me grind my gears, okay? That's not true. Other women first of all, sebum is not an oil, it's a wax, okay? So when you say, oh, sebum doesn't flow down the hair shaft, sebum does not flow. It doesn't just glide down anybody's hair shaft. Other women of other races are combing their hair multiple times a day. That's how the wax is able to get from the roots to the ends. It's not just because of their race. No, sebum is a wax that has to be combed down, but black women have been scared of combs and brushes.
Now, this little thing that looks like a little skin palette, a little bubble on the right hand side, I apologize, is what is called the sebaceous gland. This is the gland within your scalp or within your skin all over your body that produces oil. And what this first illustration is showing is a product that slows down sebum production. All right, it slows down sebum production, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But this is something that I just want you to visually see, so you can visually see the way that the sebaceous gland works. So as you can see, the sebaceous gland releases a waxy substance that is supposed to cover the scalp momentarily to protect it, and then the hair shaft. But somebody who has an aggressive sebum production like myself, I use something, not what's on the screen, but what my additive is something like avocado oil. And see what the avocado oil does. The avocado oil, it does what you see, these little blue pellets that this is about to break down, right? These little blue pellets, it kind of acts the same way that avocado oil does for my skin, but not avocado oil itself, the essence of avocados, right? So they don't take the actual avocado and press the oil out. No, a chemist knows how to break down the properties of a vegetable or whatever they're using and take only the properties that they need and push the other ones aside. But the properties that they take out of avocado oil does slow down sebum production. So what it does is it goes into the hair follicle, not avocado oil, because avocado oil itself cannot fit inside, right? And this goes in and it reacts with the sebaceous gland and it slows down the production of sebum within the hair follicle, okay? So when I say, oh, you can put different products on the scalp, the only thing that I say that are recommended to put on the scalp are things recommended by a dermatologist. So a product like this that you're looking at is something that would be recommended by a dermatologist. I'm going to start this over. If you are a person who has something like, let's say, seborrheic dermatitis, seborrheic dermatitis is an overproduction of sebum, right? So if you are overly producing sebum in the sebaceous gland, like this is demonstrating, dermatologists would recommend something to you like this drug on the screen or anything like that. They would recommend something to you that you could put on the scalp topically, and what it does, it goes into the follicle and it slows down the sebum production by a certain chemical reaction with the inner parts of the sebaceous gland. All right. So that is what I really, really want y'all to understand. When I say you can't do not put oils or butters or anything on the scalp, some people will say, oh, well, your dermatologist gives you the things that your dermatologist gives you, and an oil or a grease and a butter are two completely different things, because it is carrying this particle here that is causing this reaction that is going to slow down sebum production. But just the random oil that you're getting from the grocery store, just the random oil, no, you're not doing that, because what ends up happening then is you end up causing a extremely toxic environment for the hair follicle. Now, in the past, when we talked about rice water, people were all the rage, because I was like, you are killing yourself slowly, killing your follicle slowly by doing that. And that is exactly what I meant. Because when you change the environment of the hair follicle, what you end up doing is slowing down the hair growth cycle. Now, look at this. This is gross. Sorry, let me pause this for you guys. If you are eating something, pause this. Now, I want to show you something. In this clip, what you are seeing is somebody removing a plug, a sebum plug from the face, right? And let's hold the questions until the end of this video, y'all, and then I'm going to get to all of your questions. What you're seeing next is a sebum plug. So when you see stuff like this is sebum. Sebum is a waxy substance. So when it gets clogged, when you're thinking of like clogged follicles, clogged pores, whiteheads, blackheads, that's sebum. Look at the way that it looks. That is sebum being taken out. That little casting that you're seeing wrapped around that hair, just watch, it's going to spew out. That's a waxy substance. That is sebum spewing out of the follicle. Okay? Because you see that. Give me a 5 if you can see that. I know that's gross, right? But I really want you guys to understand what's happening, because when you have excess sebum on the scalp or excess oils from you adding extra oils, somebody just said, so walnut oil and hemp seed oil. We're going to talk about that in a second. Detangling with oil and putting things on the scalp are completely different. So in this illustration, you can see the sebaceous gland in the skin. The sebaceous gland is automatically producing the sebum that you need. It's being released from the pore, and it is a waxy substance. As you can see, it's wrapped around the hair shaft. But if you are constantly greasing the scalp, constantly oiling the scalp, you are clogging the pore, and you are making it so that bacteria is accumulating in there, because guess what? Bacteria and all of the toxins that are in the environment, their favorite food is oil. So when you leave it clogged up, right, you create a environment where bacteria can grow. This is why you feel burning, and you have the redness and the soreness and the itching and the inflammation, right? That leads to seborrheic dermatitis and dandruff. This is why it is so important to shampoo your hair on a regular basis. And this is also why it is so important not to grease the scalp, okay? You have the follicle, the hair shaft, and the sebaceous gland. This is what's going on. And within the sebaceous gland, your body is producing sebum. But not only is your body producing sebum, as the hair shaft is growing, the different layers of the cells on the hair shaft are dying off and falling off. That's the cuticle. So there are dead hair cells that are falling off, and sebum coming up, and acid and bacteria and sweat all coming up. So if you are greasing the scalp, okay, if you're greasing the scalp, if you're constantly putting oil there, all you're doing is blocking the follicle, right? And even if you do, some people say, oh, well, I use a non-comedogenic oil. It's not blocking the follicle. Okay, it's not blocking, but it's mixing with sweat, makeup, more of your natural oil. So you adding oils to your scalp, you adding grease to the scalp is only mixing in with everything that the body is releasing out. And all this does, it causes an overabundance of bacteria. This is why Black women are the leading causes of seborrheic dermatitis, CCCA, alopecia areata, telogen effluvium, and all of these different scalp disorders that all are directly linked to the follicle being blocked. I don't care what anybody says, grease does not belong on the scalp. When you have bumps and things of that nature on the scalp, or just period, it comes from a blocked sebaceous gland. This is what the sebaceous gland looks like, and this is sebum. Sebum is not an oil. Sebum is a waxy substance, and we're going to talk about it in a second. It's a waxy substance. So give me a 5 if you remember me talking about skin cell turnover. Skin cell turnover. This is the natural bacteria that lives on everybody's scalp, but when you're adding extra oil, all you're doing is causing inflammation, because the bacteria that lives on everybody's scalp, its favorite food is oil. So you're not helping by adding oil. All you're doing is causing even more inflammation. And after that, this is when your blackheads and your whiteheads form. And my loves, it happens on the skin and under the skin. The whiteheads that you see on the face, that's how it shows up on that first layer of skin on the face. But the same thing happens on the scalp. Skin cell turnover is something that happens every 28 days. Every 28 days, the skin cells on your scalp, they die, they fall off, and they make their way out. But guess what? You see all that dead skin. I want to rewind that because I want you to get that a good visual. All right. When you are constantly clogging the scalp, when you're constantly putting oils and butters on the scalp, the skin cell turnover cycle happens every 28 days. Every 28 days, the skin cells on your scalp, they die off, and then they make their way off. And if you're washing your hair on a regular basis, combing your hair on a regular basis, they lift right off. No problem. But they do not if you're greasing the scalp. They do not if you're adding excess oil. If you're adding excess oil, you're rehydrating them. And every second of the day, there's sebum coming out of your scalp, and it is your job to cleanse your hair shaft. That's it. All you have to do is shampoo your hair. Shampooing the hair is the easiest way to remove bacteria. Nothing extra. The key is breaking up these dead skin cells, not allowing them to formulate on the hair shaft. But if you're greasing the scalp, these dead skin cells cannot lift up. They can't. Our only job is to keep the scalp clean, and the only thing that belongs on the scalp is shampoo. Unless, like displayed at the very beginning of this video, you are trying to cure some type of follicle infection or something like that. But you guys, you are supposed to remove things from the scalp. You are never supposed to be putting things on them. I'm sorry. And I know a lot of people will want to argue about that, but I need you to look at this. Look at this really quick, right? And I want you to pay attention to this illustration. Look at the way that before, and as you notice what I'm talking about, if you do not agree or if you do not understand, do not let me keep talking, all right? As you are listening to the sound of my voice, I need you to let me know when you see this. Sebum is not a oil like almond oil. It is a waxy substance. I'm going to give you the scientific name in a second. But do you see the way that before your hair peeks out of your hair follicle, before it peeks out of the skin, before your hair ever comes out of the skin, right? It is covered in sebum before it comes out. So you don't have to wait for sebum to drip on your hair. Look at it. It's covered in it. All you have to do is comb your hair to help drag it out.
Most Black women, you allow your hair to get so matted and tangled that you can't get the brush through it. That has nothing to do with how your hair was made naturally to come out of your hair. It has everything to do with the amount of maintenance that you're taking on it. Your hair is dry because you don't comb or brush it. Period. I don't care what anybody says, because I'll put some things on the screen. My gurus, when they comb and brush their hair, they find themselves have to, instead of them shampooing their hair a couple of times a week, they find themselves shampooing their hair like once a day. Some have to once a day, once a week. Some have to do it a couple of times a week, simply from combing their hair, not from taking any type of supplements. No, just combing and brushing your hair. So that's not true. The reason that Black women have drier hair has absolutely nothing to do with the curl pattern, but everything to do with the majority of Black women thinking that combs and brushes are bad. Because if you meet a Black woman who combs her hair on a regular basis, sometimes her hair is so oily that it breaks out her face.
Their hair very often. I don't. That was the entire logic. At the time, my scalp was in such a bad state and I was completely unaware because I did not know anything else. I did not know what a healthy scalp was supposed to look like. I had flaking, itchiness, irritation. I just thought that was normal. That's crazy. My scalp is naturally on the drier side. If I put my finger up here and I try to get sebum, there's nothing there. This is 6 days after washing my hair.
And I love you. I love y'all so much. Y'all, I think you all have become so accustomed to covering your hair with hair products. You think that the oil, you think that sebum, the wax ester that comes out of your scalp, you think that it's gonna look like the coconut oil. It doesn't. It's not an oil, it's a wax. You're not going to put your hands on and I have an extremely oily scalp and extremely oily skin. You don't put your finger on your scalp and then see oil. It's not like, y'all, what do y'all think this is? I love y'all so much, but it's a part. She's broken the majority of the team natural psychosis, but a lot of it is still there. And I have this conversation with a lot of my gurus all the time. It's one of the first things that I have to break. It's not an oil that you're going to rub your hand across your scalp and be like, I have a bunch of it. It doesn't work like that, y'all. Especially your hair is out and your hair is out and it's stretched out. So the sebum isn't going to accumulate on your scalp enough for you to put your finger there and you to touch it.
I still don't have any sebum up here, like basically nothing. And in my head, scalp issues were reserved for people who produce too much sebum. I have now washed my hair once a week on the dot for 3.5 years. I use 2 types of shampoo, one of which is a medicated shampoo, and I also use a scalp serum 2 times a week. And all of that has made it so that my scalp is in a pristine state. It has never been healthier. It has never been cleaner. By the time it's wash day, I can look at my scalp and there is no flaking. My hair also used to break around the crown area, and that area would get really sore, and I did not know what that was, and I used to look for it and no one had an answer for me. It's because of scalp irritation. If you had that issue, try washing your hair more often. It might help. Mistake number 4 was being afraid of heat. Heat has been my best friend for the last few years, and now that I know a lot more about hair science, I now know exactly how to use it to my advantage, so I don't get catastrophic results, and it actually helps me along my length retention journey. I have always said this, and I will always say this: heat is damaging. Heat is not only damaging, the damage from heat is cumulative. That means that the more you apply heat to your hair, the more you will damage it over time. If you take a strand of hair and you straighten it 50 times and then look at it under a microscope, it will look more damaged after the flat ironing than it did before.
That's not true. That is only if you don't know what you're doing. If you know how to properly coat the hair shaft and how to properly prepare the hair shaft, you will not damage your hair. That's not true. We, as professional cosmetologists, will have clients that come to us for 20 years, right? My client Stacy, I'll try to put pictures of her hair up on the screen. Like, that's not true. Now, if you don't know what you're doing, absolutely, it'll mess up your hair over time. But I've done that as well. As a research scientist, the only time that the hair shaft looks different over time under an electron microscope is if the hair has not been properly prepared or if it's been straightened wrong, my love. So that is not true.
That is just a fact of life.
No,
however, depending on the way that you want to wear your hair, using heat might be more beneficial to it than leaving it in its natural state. There's this interesting article that I found that talks about a study where researchers took hairdressers and flat ironed them 100 times at 440 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the highest temperature that most flat irons get to. The researchers then combed through the hair and counted how many strands broke. And the hair that had been flat ironed actually broke less than the hair that had not been flat ironed. Okay, so this does not mean that heat is not damaging, because
I love y'all, but I really don't like it when y'all use studies like that, because that's not a study like that doesn't show anything about the damage that happens to the hair shaft over time. This was a group of scientists that did something that you're never supposed to do to hair in the first place, to the hair shaft. So these are extreme circumstances, because I don't know any cosmetologist that's straightening that client's hair on 450 or above every time. And I know for a fact that those scientists were not properly trained to know how to properly blow dry the hair so the hair is protected, so the cuticle is protected. I know for a fact the scientists didn't do that. Even when I'm in a lab, a scientist that's performing a certain type of experiment, unless they've been to cosmetology school, which none of them in there with me have, right? They're not going over the proper procedures that you go through in cosmetology school to make sure that damages don't occur. So that's not a study that we can make any type of decisions or inference on.
Already acknowledge that it is. What's happening is that the flat iron is temporarily aligning the hair fibers in one direction, which means less friction and less snagging when you comb through it. So the hair acts as if it's healthier when it's flat ironed, even though it's not. The researchers proved this by then reverting the hair back to its natural shape using humidity. And once the style wore off, breakage went way up compared to hair that had never been touched by heat. So to recap, the flat iron hair behaved more healthy than...
And again, this is coming from scientists that are just doing experiments. This isn't anything that you can make a hair regimen off, because what does that mean? You combing through hair, the hair that was flat iron behaved more healthily. Well, most likely, these scientists that were performing these steps didn't know how to comb or brush the hair without it breaking, right? Because that's not always true. You can have straightened hair, but if your hair is damaged, it can still break when you comb it. So that's not true. So again, I need y'all to take these scientific studies with a grain of salt, because the studies that she's using in this video aren't enough to show or prove anything except for scientists be playing in hair with flat irons.
The untreated hair until the flat iron hair was reverted to its original state, under which the damage became a lot more apparent and it broke off more. They also tested hairdressers that had conditioning ingredients applied to them before the straightening, and they found that the conditioners were preventing the heat-treated fragile hair.
Okay, I want you to pay attention to what this says. The results shown in figure 5 illustrate a sizable increase in breakage, which can occur as a direct result of the heat straightening process. However, they also demonstrate the capability for conditioning products to protect this fragile hair from breaking, such that this condition is not realized by the customer. Listen, just the fact that the scientists put this like something else. Did you know that if you have products on the hair, that it hides things, that it flattens the cuticle and it creates a barrier? Did you know? No shit, Sherlock. But again, these are scientists. Hair is not their specialty. So nothing, again, that they're saying in this study is anything that anybody should take as Bible verse. Nothing.
From breaking to the point where the damage heat had inflicted on the hair wasn't noticeable to the consumer, meaning that conditioning ingredients can actually mask the amount of damage that has been inflicted on hair after straightening. I bring this all up because earlier in my journey, when I decided that I was only going to wear my hair and nothing but my actual hair, I would follow routines done by people with a hair texture that was looser than mine. And because I was so terrified of using heat, I would try to replicate those routines on my hair with a different texture, and the result would never come out right, number one. And number two, my hair would tangle all the time, no matter what I did. And all that tangling and all those knots would set me back. That in itself was a mistake, following people with a different hair texture from mine and trying to replicate the routines. I have no doubt that wearing your natural hair in stretch styles without applying heat is better overall for the health of your hair. But I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to have to wait 2 days for my hair to dry. I want to be able to wear my hair during the week out if I choose to do so. So heat has been my best friend within that context. Mistake number 5, and I'm sorry who this is going to disappoint, because I know a lot of you still do this, but my last mistake was relying exclusively on all natural products. I know that every brand out there now tries to take a more science-based approach or uses that term in their marketing, but there was a time where whether or not a hair care product was considered to be good for your hair was dependent on whether or not it was considered natural. Everyone was trying to run away from toxic chemicals, and that's how every brand removed sulfates and silicones from their shampoos and conditioners. I am so mad that it took me so long to realize that I love silicones, that my hair wants silicones. I will never stop putting silicones on my hair.
Hello, because this is the thing. We started off with moisture, right? The thing that all Black women have been searching for in the Team Natural whole little shindig has been the first thing that they took away, which was silicones. Because when you remove the silicone is one of the best moisturizers out. And what is a moisturizer? Something that creates a barrier. Silicone is just creating a barrier. I did a full lecture, multiple lectures on silicones, and there were the Team Naturals. Oh my God, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't like Black people. Same thing all the time. So it's a great thing to see people talking about it now, but it's also like really bittersweet, because it's like, damn, I've been saying this shit for years. Guess I wasn't saying it right, I guess. I don't know.
When I look back on that era, there was no logic. It was just vibes. That entire belief hinged on the idea that silicones were putting a fake coating over your hair, and you wanted something that would not put a fake coating over your hair, but would actually make it softer from the inside out.
And isn't this crazy, right? The reason that Team Natural cut out silicones was because it puts coatings on your hair. But then After the silicones was removed, then they gave you the lock method, liquid oil cream. Like, how do you go, oh, no silicones because it puts a layer on your hair, to everybody putting so much freaking product on their hair that you're spending a couple of $100 every 2 weeks just on hair products alone because you using half the bottle in a week because you put so much product on your hair. It's like, my head hurts.
The problem with that logic, of course, is that hair is dead, so you can only make it feel softer. Everything that you're going to put on there that will make it feel softer will essentially just put an outer coating on your hair. Even the natural oils, that's what they're doing. If you're doing a mask with God knows what natural oil out there, the reason why your hair feels softer after is because the oils provide lubrication to your hair.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
Conditioners and silicones are excellent at doing that.
Yes,
they were
ma'am.
especially engineered to be able to do that. And they were also engineered to be safe. The recurring problem that I had with certain natural ingredients like shea butter or aloe vera was that they would irritate my scalp and my hair. This doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with shea butter or aloe vera. A lot of products that I love have either one of those ingredients, but in the raw form, they were irritating my scalp.
And I love her. But the thing is, the reason that it became so irritating and the reason that it was irritating your scalp, the aloe vera, all of the all natural products and things of that nature, it wasn't an issue that people were using all natural products. The issue was the fact that people don't understand that you can't take food in its rawest form and put it in your hair. No, it doesn't work like that. Just like the reason that when you eat or drink aloe vera juice, or when you eat the aloe vera plant, the reason that your body ingests all of those different nutrients, right, is because your stomach has enzymes that break down the food. And it takes apart the aloe plant and it lets off the things. It gets rid of the things that your body doesn't need. That's the waste, the things that you let out in the toilet. But then the enzymes, once it breaks everything down, it keeps all of those botanicals and all of those things that actually do help your hair to grow. And then you start getting all of those benefits. But just putting it in your hair, that doesn't do it. And I think that's one of the main reasons why most women are so confused. I really do, because it's actually kind of ridiculous when you think about it, because year after year after year after year, you have cosmetologists like me making video girl after video girl, constantly telling everybody the same freaking things over and over again. And it's like, now in 2026, now everybody's like, oh my God, I've discovered this thing. I discovered this new thing that all of the professional cosmetologists, all of the people who went to school, the shit that they've been telling us all the time, I've discovered it. I discovered that, and it's real now. It's crazy.